we can get started. Thanks everybody for coming, and especially thanks to the Winchuck Fire Department. We really appreciate you letting us use your facilities, and we're glad everybody came. My name is Roy. I'll be mediating the meeting tonight. Tonight's speaking for us, we have 4 people. The first speaker is going to be Court Boyce. He is the County Commissioner for Curry County. The second speaker is going to be John Ensley. He is representing the Sheriff's Office. We have Incident Commander Tom Savage. And we also have Incident Commander Beth Lund. So, just a couple of things. Let's go ahead and maybe turn your cell phones and everything like that to silent, and then also just in the interest of time, so that everyone can get a fair chance to speak, please let's hold our questions until the end. And we really appreciate everybody showing up. This is a much better turnout than we had anticipated, so we apologize for not having enough packets for everyone, informational packets. So if maybe your neighbor doesn't have one, we can go ahead and look on it. Yeah, there we go. Community sharing. Okay. Sure, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. For those that know me I'm Miles Curran. I'm the Assistant Chief. The Chief did not be here tonight, and we really did not expect it. Yeah. Not by a long stretch. We're trying to get seating out for everybody. Only thing I'm going to say is, I think it'll be nice to these people. They're here for one reason, to help us put out the fire. They're not political. They have nothing to do with who makes the decision from Capitol Hill up there. That's really all I want to say. I'm going to turn it over to, yeah, Roy. How do you like that? I can't remember a 3-letter word. Like he said, please hold your questions to the end and say what you need to say, but try to say it in a way that, because we know everybody's upset, everybody's worried, and it is about the Winchuck today. I think what we have to remember. What's up in Agnes and 25 miles away does not count right now. That's all hindsight. There's nothing we can do about it. So let's try to look forward.
Thanks again. Yeah, like you said, the topic today is current fire information, and so we can speak to that. And without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Court Boyce, County Commissioner.
Thank you, Roy. So it's a privilege to be here. Let me tell you why. Chances of me ever getting reelected are very slim. It just doesn't happen in Curry County, so I can make real tough decisions. So if you call me a politician, my bodyguard here, Howard, will take care of you, okay? The reason it's a privilege, I raised my family in the Road River Wilderness, and Paradise Lodge it's called. So I mean, why do you have a coat on? Because it's waterproof, and I'm not taking it off until we get a full inch of rain. I promise you. Superstitious, but determined. So anyway, at that lodge, I survived 2 fires. One was the Blossom Bar fire in 2005, and of course the Biscuit fire in 2002. And I thought I learned a little bit about wildland fires, but until I haven't hardly missed one day, maybe 2, since this expanded or exploded, for lack of a better term, on August 18th. And I learned how little I know about wildland fires. I think at some point, in all seriousness, I want to write a book, and it's either going to be called The Chetco Effect, or maybe, what's that rock and roll group, Earth, Wind, and Fire? Curry, Wind, and Fire. And the reason I want to say the wind part is because what we've all learned, some older than me might have already known this, but on the 18th, when it comes roaring down the Chetco Canyon, and got within 5.5 miles of Brookings, it was the scariest thing I ever saw in my life, or I've ever been around. And 2 days later, 3 days later, the wind changed, to say the least. And instead of going west, or instead of coming down the canyon southwest, it decided to go north-northwest towards Carpenterville, Cape Row, and of course Pistol River. And that was even more scary. This is no exaggeration, there's people here smarter than me that can correct me if I'm wrong, but it went 4.5 miles in about 13 or 14 hours. And the people, the sheriff's department and the entire team, state police, everybody, they really, worst case scenario, they had 12 hours to get the people out if it had gone another 4.5, 5 miles. And so to witness that, it was just incredible. So back to the book, what I've learned and what I've observed has just been an incredible privilege. Yes, there are some concerns, there's some views on national policy, and all of that goes with it, and we're working on that, and we're determined. I've been spending a lot of time with other county commissioners all over the state, and they have connections all over the western U.S., and we know we need to make some changes. We know essentially that this fire is part of a policy that in rural Oregon, in rural America, we have to revisit, and we have to do it right away. I'm going to conclude here by just asking everybody to be part of the Curry County recovery, because we are going to be very fortunate if we stay under 200,000 acres. And that's a major hit. If it goes over 200,000, it'll be right at 1/5 of our total land area. It's not saying we can't come back, and we will, but it's going to take a community effort that's been represented by everything that's happened since the 18th. How the community, even Delaware County, Port Orford, all the way part of that. It's just been an incredible thing to witness, and it's humbling, and it's been a neat time in my life. We're going to defeat this fire, and then we're going to rebuild. One more thing, and Chief Brazil here from the Harbor Chief, he can help me on this, but I think we have 10 or 11 rural fire districts in Curry County, and they all are volunteer, and I made the point, sometimes they even have to pay for their own training, and they come with the drop of a hat. So it's a nice reminder for us all to remember to kind of support them any way we can. And you know, the county doesn't have a lot of funds right now, but if I do my job, maybe we'll be able to help more down the road, and with your help, we will. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker will be Sergeant John Ensley.
Thank you. As you know, well, you might not know, but the sheriff, he was putting in 14, 16-hour days the first 3.5, 4 weeks of this fire, and it caught up to him, so they asked me to come up. First, I know the sheriff would like to just thank everyone for their graciousness towards all the fire crews, first responders, and the National Guards. I know it's a tough, trying, stressful time for everyone, but overall, the feedback everyone's gotten has been very positive, and we do really appreciate that. Recently, I believe this came out 2 days ago, as far as evacuation notices, there's no longer any level 3 evacuation notices in Curry County. They either have fire lines in place or containment. So that's a very, good step in the right direction for everyone. We do still have a few level 2 evacuation areas. And for up here on the Winchuck, it is above Peabody Road. So we are still in an area that, should the weather not cooperate, something could happen. I don't know. We'll let the fire people tell you more about that. But the sheriff's concern is to make sure that we don't take any risk with the public's health and safety. So we're always going to err on the side of overly cautious, give you everyone as much warning and everything. That's why you got the warnings when you got them the first time around. As soon as we do anything, we're out there trying to help you. And our biggest thing is we don't want any loss of life. I mean, property's bad enough, but we can't replace you guys. So, and that's all I have about evacuations.
Thank you, Sergeant. Our next speaker is Incident Commander Tom Savage.
Good evening. I'm a retiree from the Oregon Department of Forestry, and I traveled down from Astoria yesterday. So I'm not up here to be an expert on telling you. You all know a lot more about what happened here than I did. I was invited to come today, and I think I just want to tell you, this is a unified command. Cruise Forest Protective Association asked me to come down. They've had a number of people that have taken part in this fighting this fire from the beginning, and they've worked with a number of different teams over the course of this fire. I've fought fire for about 40 years with the Oregon Department of Forestry. Was an incident commander when I retired a couple years ago. They called me back to come down to help out on this effort. And on every fire, it's the local resources that really help us get the fire out. South Coast and other operators, maybe a number of people in the room here. When the fire starts, we're looking for local information, we're looking for local help, and oftentimes that's what helps us catch the fire. Getting some trails built, finding out the best access in, and overall, I've been following this fire from afar. I was working on a couple other fires elsewhere, but obviously this has been a big one, and I know you've all been impacted by it. So I think I'm not sure I'll be available for questions. You can tell from how short I've been here that I'm not an expert. But from all that I know, there was a good working relationship with Beth and her team, and there's been several other people that have worked with the other teams. They've understood, about protecting your homes. Cruise Forest Protective Association is about protecting private lands and BLM lands. So the focus that I've seen and that I've heard on the fire has been putting the resources mostly on the west end of the fire. The west end and the southwest corner, the area that's in private land. That's, if you look at the incident action plan, you'll see that the vast majority of the crews, where the aircraft have been working, where the dozers have been, where the National Guard is, they've all been over here in large part trying to get this fire under control to end the evacuations, get everybody back in their homes, and to relieve those tensions for those of you that are under evacuation now. I think we're going to let all four people speak, and then if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, John. Our final speaker is Incident Commander Beth Lund.
Well, good evening, everyone, and I also want to thank the fire department and your community. It's a great turnout. I'm going to do my best to give you an update on what we're doing on the fire. Just a little background information. My team comes out of the Great Basin area, so that is Nevada, Utah, southern Idaho, and pieces and parts of Wyoming and Arizona a little bit. So we have 16 national Type 1 teams, and they've all been out this summer and are currently all out unless they're back at R&R. So it just tells you that there's a lot going on, and I know you guys watch the news. Oregon, Washington, Montana have really been hit hard with wildfires. So we were on a fire in Montana before this, and now we're here. So we're very happy to be here. This is a beautiful country, and it's been about 30 years since I was on a fire here back in the 80s, I think, up near Gold Beach. So I haven't been back, but it's really great. And being from the Intermountain, it's pretty special to be able to see the ocean once in a while. Pretty cool.
Welcome home.
So I was actually raised in the Bay Area, so I long for it sometimes. So, I just want to say also the cooperation, I want to emphasize that with Chief Brazil, Mr. Watson back there, Jim. the Sheriff's Department, I want you to know that we work, and of course, CFPA and ODOT, we work every day. We meet at 9 o'clock at the EOC there in Brookings, and all of those partners come together still. We're always concerned, and we've been working hard on that map he had up there, was showing you, getting you guys back into your homes and reducing those evacuation levels as best we can. I don't know much about the history of this other than what I've been told and what I can see when we look at our progression maps of how this fire grew. However, we've been here for about a week. Like I said, we got here on the 9th and took over from the other team. And when I got here, there was 5% containment. We now have 38, and that was from yesterday. And my ops guys are going to come in. Operations folks are going to come in tonight and probably put a little bit more on the map for us. So we're hoping to get to at least 50 by the time we leave. We got one more week here, and I'm hoping that takes care of this whole. Can you blow that up at all? Yeah. When I start talking about it. So I know you guys are mostly interested in the Winchuck area. I got and stay up there for that other little one there, the Indigo. I'll just talk about the north end briefly, and then we'll get down to this. But I do just want to reiterate on the National Guard. Yesterday we deployed another 6 crews. That's 120 people. We already had 120 people contingent from the National Guard, and they've also been doing all these road closures and trying to keep people safe out there. And they were doing road closures to guard watch over the private lands when people were evacuated from their homes. So, so I just really appreciate the welcome that we've had here, being somewhat foreigners to this country. KJ always teaches me how to use this. And, yeah, there we go. So we also, and I wanted to mention, this is the county line, I think, pretty much here. At least I think most of it runs along the county line. And this fire is divided. They put another incident management team, a type 2 team, on this east side right after things got pretty heated, because it was a lot to handle. And so with all trying to keep everybody safe and keep the homes and all the property and try to protect the values. So Brian Gales is on this side. Him and I talk every day as well. He's probably got about 400 or 500 people on that side. They're staying in Selma and have a helibase over there near Cape Junction. But the other day, and I can't remember now for sure, I think it was Sunday, we had a start up here. It was a holdover lightning strike that was noticed by somebody passing by, a helicopter that was just happened to notice it that day. It wasn't too smoky, and so they saw it, and it's called the Indigo Fire. It's probably about 400 acres now. It's really just kind of backing down into a drainage, but it's also in some very steep and rugged country. We've got about 5 crews up there trying to get around that fire and get a box around it so we can get that contained. But it is inside the biscuit fire, the old biscuit fire. It just happened to find a patch of timber in there to burn around in. But we don't feel at this point, I don't feel at this point, that it's any threat to Agnes. And I think we'll get some moisture before that becomes any kind of an issue. But again, we're all dependent on the weatherman, especially in this business. So he's feeling pretty confident that we're going to get somewhere around a ½ inch or so by Sunday. Sunday, and then a 60% chance of rain Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we have a good opportunity to get some moisture into the system here and really put a damper on things. And that'll help us get the boots on the ground out there and try to get some of the containment increased. But we have made some progress. And so starting up here on the top, I believe the local term for this area is the craggies. And we decided to, whenever we color these black lines, the lines black, that means my operations folks are pretty certain that that is not gonna, it's cold. What it did is it just ran up to the Razorback Ridge up there and pretty much stopped. And there's not a lot of fuel up there to burn. This has been an area we've been working pretty hard on. We have a lot of the troops right here. They've got a line around this, and they burned some of this out to make sure that the line's safe. And then we've been, the team before us had built a dozer line here to contain this. The other day, we had a spot fire in here, and it kind of became active, and so it forced our hand, so we started burning out from that dozer line, and it's worked beautifully. We had sort of some northeast winds, northern winds, and they were pushing the fire back into itself, so we had a couple hotshot crews up there, and they've been making great progress, but they're being very careful, taking their time. I know some people get concerned when we put more fire on the ground, but that's the only way we can keep it from not crossing that fire line. So they're almost down here from what I can tell, my ops guys told me, and then they just need to tie in with this other division. This whole western side was really managed by Coos Forest Protective folks, and they were taking the leadership on that side and did a lot of great firefighting going direct around all those plantations and all that timberland, and really saved a lot of ground. So we can move up a little bit. Just to let you know too, we did build a contingency line along roads and things up there. We had some feller bunchers and things like that. I believe they took about 5 or 6 loads out of there this morning, log loads, and probably take some more out off of that land. We decked up all of that stuff, so it's merchantable, it'll be sold, but we've been, that's just in case this thing would have kept moving, that would have given us another opportunity to try to catch it out there. Fortunately, we were able to stop it here and go fairly direct here. Again, this is all pretty cool, but we've got the National Guard folks mopping that up. There's 240 of them out there. They're also helping us retrieve some pumps and hose and doing some repair work. Once we get these fire lines in, we have to go back and make sure we put water bars in on them once it's cold, to make sure that as soon as the rain comes, it's kind of a hard, difficult mix there, because the rains are going to come, and we want to make sure that those where we disturb the soil, it doesn't run water. So there's a combination of all that work going on in here. We hope to turn this all black by the end of by probably mid next week, I'm thinking. So this should all show some containment. And then this was a tough little piece that the Coos Forest Protective folks dealt with, this little spot fire down here. Like I said, some really good firefighting went on there. This has been cold for quite some time in here, and I hope you'll forgive me. I tried to learn as many of the local names as I could, but I've only been here a week, so I don't want to mess them up. Down here near Mount Emily is what you guys are interested in, so let's talk about that. So this piece of ground here had just, it was back down into a drainage there, and it had just basically kind of held itself up. It hadn't crossed the drainage, but then we had this piece here that ran the ridge out. What it did is it just ran out a ridge here when it came out of there. It looks like they had some containment here, and when the Chetco effect, when that northeast wind blew down here, it blew something across the line, and I know they put a lot of retardant in there and what have you, but they just couldn't catch it. Again, that was before I got here. So what we've been doing is trying to, help this, or not help it, but it's too dangerous to put people on the ground in there. There's a lot of snags, and it's just really steep ground and a lot of fire in there. So it is backing down there, though, to that, it's backing down in here to the drainages, and it really is all going out when it gets to, there's a little creek right here. And we've got people in there watching that, and there's some little roads where we can get into some of that. So that's how we're gonna deal with it. We're just watching to make sure it doesn't cross those drainages, and we're using a lot of aviation. We have 12 helicopters on this incident. A couple of those big National Guard Chinooks, and they've been helping us keep that in check. And what we're trying to do is just, keep it in check until we get some wetting rains, which hopefully are coming. This in here, I believe they've hung this up on a road system, and we have boots on the ground here. And also, we had a dozer line right here. This happened again before we got here, but there was a dozer line and it had slopped over. That's a term we use. And it slopped over the ridge there, so this is all looking pretty good too. And some of that may be what they're gonna turn black tonight, I'm not sure, but I actually had a chance to fly with Tom this afternoon, And it's always helpful, I don't need to fly, but it's helpful for me to see how the land lays, particularly since I don't know it like you guys do. You can see this messy, fingery area here. They are working on road systems. And I don't know the name of this, the number of this road or the name. I'm sure you guys have a name for it, but they are burning out along this road and trying to get some fire into here just very gently so that we can haul this contained. Initially, we weren't sure. Previously, they built a contingency line, dozer line down along here. That would have been a lot more fire into the landscape, and the way, fall's kind of coming. My folks decided to try to tighten this up in here and go direct as best we could. So they are working diligently on that. We have about 1,700 firefighters on this fire. Like I said, about 400 or 500 of them are on the other side, but we got about 1,200 on this side, and the majority of them are where they're fighting fire is right here, and of course up on the top piece that I showed you. So we're tying all this together. I'm not going to make any guarantees that every single stitch of that's going to be black, but we are going to try to get containment on as much of that as we can, and they feel pretty optimistic. They've got some little road systems in here that they're also making sure they're improved in case we can't catch it right where it is. We'll get it right here. We're not going to try to burn out but we're not going to try to put more fire into any of these systems. And if we get that rain, like I said, that'll give us an opportunity to go in here, and we may just be able to go direct right at the edge of the fire, which it's always the best bet if you can do that. But in this big timber country on steep slopes, it's very dangerous, and we've had already this year too many young men and women that have, a couple that have perished doing this work. So we guard against that as best we can. Our first priority is always your safety and the firefighter's safety. So that's what we're working with. Back down in here, this stuff's backing down as well into drainages and kind of going out. They put some black line here. We've got boots out here, working here, and firefighters working down in here to try to see if they can get around this finger. We haven't got quite there yet, but we're also using the aviation pretty heavily in that whole area here. So I feel really confident it's not going to move around anymore. We've got a lot of people out there. And I feel like in the next few days, we're going to be able to get containment on this whole portion here. And with the rain and the help of that, we'll try to get back out there and get it buttoned up. So that is what we have going on. You saw the evacuation map earlier. I'm pretty sure you're all aware of that. But all of this stuff here went into level 1. And I would foresee that being lifted soon. And then we wanted to get folks back into their homes here, and so we lifted the level 3, and of course, in conjunction with the sheriff and the fire chiefs. I really defer to the local folks to help us with that. We can tell them what we feel as far as the danger of the fire area, but they really know the area and know all of you. And so hopefully within a week or so, all the evacuations can be lifted, the evacuation levels, and people can get back to a normal life. But I don't want to ramble on too much longer. I just wanted to again thank you for having us here tonight, and we're certainly all here, whether you have questions for myself or the Sheriff's Department or Tom. I think we're at that point, right, Roy?
Here we are. Thank you, Beth. I think we can open it up to questions now. Yes, sir?
I just want to make a statement. I'm not about policy issues. I'll save that for the editorial page. But what I wanted to say was, I'm from the Long Beach area of California. We don't have a lot of forest fires in Long Beach. So I tried to interview some contract firefighters and stuff. And what they told me was that Mount Emily on Labor Day was one of the scariest things they've ever seen with that the check-go effect. They just said it was really scary. And so the community really appreciates the valor of the firefighters, and we appreciate the hard work. And the Sheriff's Department, the law enforcement, everybody cooperated, doing a great job. We appreciate it. And just one last sentence is, I talked to some guys, and they told me they travel the country fighting these fires, and they they said they've never been in a community like Card County, Brookings. They're so appreciative of these people. So thank you.
Ben?
I'm just wondering about, when they're gonna take out the merchantable timber up here that they cut.
So, that's gonna be up to the Forest Service, and, I believe they're gonna have some informative meetings with the public, and talk about all that stuff in the coming days. I can't answer that.
Obviously, you know, on the private ground, South Coast will be certainly salvaging.
No,
I think
this
you
is
were
Forest
referring to
Service.
the
Yeah,
federal.
this is Forest Service.
Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Melvin Thornton was here prior to Tom being here, and I thought he told me Commissioner's saying 17,000. He told me 12, so it's somewhere in that neighborhood, 12.
That was 10 days ago.
What was the
I
question?
think
Anybody know that?
What was the
The
question?
question was, how much timberland has...
Mike's probably got the right
Oh, I'm
acreage.
sorry, Mike, I didn't see you there.
Yeah.
But-
Now, on the private side, yeah, there's about 11,000 plus of South Coast, 7,000 of BLM, and then some miscellaneous private, so it's about a little over around 21,000 acres on our jurisdiction.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question. Lived in California in timber country for 43 years. We have pretty extensive defendable space issues and always getting together with the Forest Service in California about that. Tremendous fires in our dryland areas because it's dry there. Lived here for almost 13 years. I don't see a lot of talk about defensible space. Bought a house out here in 2012. First thing I did, cleared it out, asbestos, I put concrete all around, fire safe siding, roofs. I don't see a lot of that. I see a lot of hoses, I see a lot of whatever. Can you give me an idea of what Oregon does for defensible space? What does it promote? What does it talk about? What are your limitations? Ours now is a 100-foot setback in California. What is Oregon? Do you talk about that?
Mike, you just offered that a minute ago. None of the cities, communities, correct me if I'm wrong, in Coos or Curry County are fire-wise. And that's those are the guidelines. I've just been in office 6 or 7 months, whatever. But that's something that we're working on through Coos Forest Protective, which, by the way, Mike, I've known him for 30 years, Derwin. Jim Watson has been every morning at the briefings. But that's, to answer your question, that's part of the fire-wise efforts that we have to lead as a county. It's not been done, and I'm going to take on that responsibility, and it's very important work.
Question, why not? Is it the climate here? I mean, we've known about it for years. I mean, it was 25 feet, then it was 50, then 70, then 100.
It was kind of on your honor, you know, and it's interesting. You go Cape Row, just one example, you'll see half the neighbors have done that work out of respect for their neighbors and their own property, and then the other half are pretty much indifferent, and so we have to get beyond the honor system and say, hey, this is so critical, we'll help you do it, but is that correct, Mike? It's through the fire-wise system.
And part of it is, the county has setback standards for code, but the counties typically don't have any way of regulating and enforcing it. It takes money and people.
Right.
So there is standards for that. And then when you start talking fire-wise communities, we have several of them in our district, and we run all the way from like the Wayne County line all the way to California, so we're a big area. But the problem is, it's about funding.
Right.
And it takes money for the communities. Now, the individuals that live in our communities, it is coastal, so it's not as fire danger as awareness as what you came from. So.
Right. But I just wondered that education, because I've been here a long time and not heard anything. I mean, I get the paper and the file and I don't hear it, you know,
But we were
I've
talking
known
about.
it for years, so
We were talking about this in June, is the reason I'm a little bit informed on this. I'm meeting with Senator Merkley tomorrow, and with a bipartisan effort, is trying to take our SRS funds, more flexibility, so that those funds, per your point, Mike, that we need the funds to get this done, and it's
Yeah,
working
I
better.
understand the funding situation, but the education doesn't really take a lot of money, and that's kind of it. You know, do people really want to be safe? Do they not? And the other thing is insurance costs, okay? We all insure our homes. You know, the inspectors come out, they look at your property, they take pictures. You know, that might be where you need to start with your insurance. I already has insurance, you can afford your money to get it. At least they know. You know, my insurance agent in Oregon here knows that I have a very defensible space.
No, your point is well taken,
Yeah,
and
there's other
hopefully
ways other than
the fire will make a difference, and we can get better motivated.
I guess a quick question. Okay, we have a kind of a small lot, and then there's the Winchuck Association, which has 60 acres. Do I have a right, can I protect my house by going on the common area association woods to cut back for my house for safety? Because I got some dead trees right next to my house. So it's association property, but it's.
You want to take those dead trees out?
I want to take the dead tree out, it's endangering my
Call
house.
my office and I'll bring my chainsaw and help you and I'll get it done.
Come on.
Like,
Just to speak to your point briefly, those of us that own rural forestry grazing property all had questionnaires and information sent to us about 5-6 years ago by the Forest Service office out of Gold Beach, information on how to make your space defensible, you know, and plenty of expertise, people willing to come to your house, a lot of times an hour and a half, 2 hours away from where the actual Forest Service office was, to come and look and see what they can do. So there's an ongoing program. What I'd like to know about though is, you know, we have a large section of open fire between essentially the upper region, all along the north fork of the Smith River, right? That region. And it goes clear up to Checo Peak and then clear over to Vulcan Peak and beyond. That's black. So what is black in that area? Because it's all pretty much rodents. So what's black in that section from Checo Peak to Vulcan Peak and beyond? And what's the containment issue for the north fork of the Smith? Because just that's the east where that's all old Biscuit Burn, old Silver Fire Burn, all that can come right back in. Here.
Well, I flew over Chetco Peak today. I'm not sure is Vulcan on the south end.
Vulcan's just a little bit kind of north and west, or east, I guess, actually.
Well, you're basically talking about the wilderness area, correct?
Yeah, yeah, it's all right up in.
So we turned all of this black, you'll note, in the center here.
Yeah.
My ops guy said this all, and I flew it today, it's all pretty cold. There's nothing on the edge. It's ran into the Biscuit Burn to where it petered out because there wasn't any more fuel. Now there are stringers of timber and what have you in the Biscuit Burn. The Biscuit Burn roughly takes up about half of this fire. So it came down here and went back up. It was huge. It was 500,000 acres. So it's about half of this. It gobbled up the whole wilderness area basically. So we're probably going to be able to turn a lot more of this black. As far as I'm concerned, it's fairly well contained here. There's a few little puffers here that we haven't had any, boots on the ground to check it. But nothing. There's no fuels out here really. There's not heavy timber or anything to carry that fire in a big running crown fire. Is what I'm saying. So
yeah, there's not much out there.
no. So this is all pretty secure here. This in the Illinois drainage here was smoking a little bit when I flew over it, but really largely this whole piece here is pretty much out. And I know when you look at the map and you see this red, it looks terrible, but there's heavy timber all down in here, and to some extent up here, and it's creeping down underneath that. But again, we've got people out here on all these little roads scouting all that and putting containment wherever they can safely with the help of the helicopters.
We have time for just a few more questions. Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
At hindsight, when the thing was first lit by lightning, what would you folks, how would you do it differently than just let it burn? Is there any counsel or any ideas that we could, if someone saw a fire start with a lightning strike, do we have to call Washington or Salem or what?
I mean, how can we improve this so it won't happen again?
Well, I can answer that just briefly, because I wasn't here, and again, there's gonna be some opportunities to ask the unit how that all took place, but they did not let it burn. I've seen the documentation. They put 4 repellers on that fire when it was discovered. It was called in by an airliner. 4 repellers sliding out down a rope. This young man right here, I believe he was one of them. So, but we're not gonna put him on the spot. They all slid down a rope, and they did what they could, and the fire became too active, and they asked to be removed, which was good on them, because we don't want any of them to not make it. So that's what happened. They put plenty of buckets and helicopters and air tankers. They put everything on that. The wilderness did not deter them from trying to. They looked at putting jumpers on it, but it's no roads. They're gonna have to aerial deliver those folks, and when the fire gets upwards of 10 acres in fuels like that, we're not gonna leave them in there. We're just not gonna do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you remember anything tonight, that section right there that they're calling the thumb, forgive me, right here, in that part, we just gotta get through the next 10 days, and that's gonna take everybody being on their toes. If I can put it any other word, no complacency, no barbecue fires, we've been telling groups, no grass fires. It'll just take one little slight misstep, and even if it doesn't rain, but if it does, let's just, we're still not gonna be at the finish line on this fire. It is a monster. I don't know how else to say it, but we can just concentrate on that, help our neighbors, and as you leave tonight, just, again, remind everybody to be on your toes. I don't know how we got here, but if you concentrate on that, I think we have a better chance. Odds are we'll win. Beat it.
Ma'am?
I listened to the report this morning about the west end of the fire, and 2 different times they mentioned fire activity on the Winchuck. Could we address that, since we're on the Winchuck, and know where that is and what's happening with it?
Well, I thought I kind of tried to address it, but basically, like I said, there's some active fire here, backing down in here. I mean, I realize the Winchuck drainage is kind of in here, right? But this is the area that I thought you guys were concerned about. Is that what you want me to address? So like I said, there's fire backing down into drainages down here. It's just backing gently down the slope. It's creating some smoke because there's leaf litter and needles and what have you on the ground. But it's backing slowly. That's where the smoke's coming from. Some of this is cold. Also, some of this is backing, these little fingery areas is where that's just backing down slopes and getting into the bottom of drainages. So like I said, we've got all of our folks out in here on this road system and around here trying to tie all these things together and put some fire in here to where we can get, so that we can have a black line all the way around the fire. So that's the extent of what we're doing. Now over in here, we've got black on the map right here. And we're working on this piece right here. So once we get all that tied together, you can see we're gonna try for that. We have a week left. There'll be another team here after us. But once we get rain on that, we won't be able to do any more burning. So we'll probably have to try to go direct and just put out the little smokes where they occur.
It looks like it's about, 4.5 miles from here up to the southernmost part of that. That helps give an idea about the distance.
I'll get one question in before the end of the night. Sure, this is the last question. There'll be time to answer questions individually, one-on-one, after this last one.
So my name's Alan Vander. I retired off this ranger district, and I worked with Mike multiple times in fires in the Winchuck, fires in the Chetco. And Beth, I so much appreciate everything that your team is doing. But I can tell you this, after dealing with fires for 40 years, I won't rest until there's a wetting rain that will knock your socks off. And time again, where'd Mike go?
Right here.
Mike and I have stood going, geez, we got this wetting rain in September. We got wetting rain in October. It's now the latter part of October. The winds are heavy. That little dozer pile we were working on that we thought we had it dead out is now up and running. And so I would, Beth, I so appreciate you taking the flight. That's cool. And with you going direct as close as you can, that's even cooler. But I have a request for your team. I also know, and when you say the Calamiopsis, it looks pretty dead. It just takes one little smoke. And so what I would ask of your team is, you have 1 week left with your team. Before you leave, when you do your morning briefing, the Facebook thing, what I would really appreciate is I'd like to know each part on the south end that would affect this area.
Here.
What is lined and what is not lined, not just what you think is black, but what's lined. And what's lined that is black, and what's lined that you have unburned fuel between the line and what your resources have done. And then you can carry that on to the next team. And what I would say is, for another team to come in, think about this. That ranger district is around the corner north. And so to keep an eye on this till the latter part of October is going to require some real vigilance. So I'd ask your team, leave some great tracks on the latter part of October, and 30 years of weather data shows us that sometimes we don't get that real wetting rain until mid-November. So the vigilance, I think, is super important. And Beth, if you would, in that morning briefing, give us a specific, with an ops somebody that said boots on the ground, run all the way around that corner just to give us some comfort level as to what you're leaving.
Okay, I absolutely, I do, you know, I know I'm not from here, but I defer to all these local folks I'm working with. I've heard about the terrible winds and all the things that, was it Alan? All the things this gentleman was talking about. And so we are very aware that it only takes one little spark for that stuff to come out of there. Very aware. Like I said, I'm not here to make any promises that that whole finger is going to turn black. But we won't call it black until we're sure. We've either felt it with our hands or we've got line around it to where we know it is. And so I understand what you're saying. Yes, we can try to concentrate on that a little bit more. I know you guys, you know, to give you some peace of mind. So I totally get it. I've looked at the country and I've heard the stories about the Chetco effect, so I really do understand. I do want to say one last thing. You know, those of us that do have the opportunity to fly this country, you know, I just want to say, it's when you look at that big red area up there, it's not all scoured off. That this fire burned. It ran up this slope and back down this one, and it really is kind of a mosaic out there. There are some areas that are burned pretty hard, but for the majority of it is got a mosaic out there. So it's going to recover, but it's not going to be the same. But it's going to recover, and it's not all just level. So thank you very much for your patience, and we'll be up here if you have some individual. I also wanted to mention we have the smoke person back here, Linda. If you have questions about smoke, she's right back there in the black jacket, so please ask her questions.
Hey everybody, all you that are parked in the grass out here, don't go out and spin your wheels and start a fire in the dry grass.